Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Cassie of Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. We are positively here in beautiful Fadley's. We're at Lexington Market. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I have the Magic 8-Ball scratch-offs. My guest, Cassie of Baltimore Magazine, will be getting one before we depart here today. We've already had some crab cakes. We're going to be down here a lot during baseball season. We're here before the Orioles-Red Sox game. If you're listening to this on the back end, we're going to be doing the Crab Cake Tour next Friday at Costas. We're going to be at Beaumont on the 17th. We're going to be on the 23rd. We're going to be in at Cooper's North up in Timonium. And then on the 30th at Coco's Pub in Lauraville. This guy has joined me at Coco's Pub. He's also joined me at State Fair, amongst other places. I dragged him right down here in the heart of the city that he loves so much and he's written about. He is an outsider who has become an insider. What's your official title, editor? So don't get Max mad at me. What are you?
Senior editor.
Senior editor, and she is the
editor-in-chief,
but not the publisher.
No, that's Steve Jeffers.
All right, I'm just making sure I get all of this right because Don's not here holding up magazines and doing all that cusp of Renaissance greatness. But I ran into you honest, dude. Opening day, I'm by the ticket box office where my buddy John Volpe used to work, and up on the bike rides Ron Cassie, and I see him, hey, what's up? You're going to the game. He has a press credential. I do not have a press credential. So we had a moment about that, and I said, hey, dude, I'm doing a show at Fadley's on Wednesday. You been to Fadley's lately? And you said
I hadn't been since they moved over to the new Lexington Market.
But you have been in the new market.
Yes.
All right. I mean, you're like a guy who rides a bike. You're a legitimate crunchy granola, athletic, sort of dude that likes your bike. And you rode your bike here, you ride your bike to the state. So I figured you had been here. You're a city guy. I see you as a real Baltimore City guy.
I do ride my bike. That's how I get around town. And at the other Fadley's location, I stop there all the time on my bike. Just lock it up quick. You can just walk in.
So this was not your first Fadley's Crab Cake?
Oh, no, many times the other location.
Okay, all right. So.
And when the new one opened up, I just ducked in and walked around, did that a couple times.
So this is your first Fadley's Crab Cake in a year, or more than a year. Yeah,
that's true.
All right. And how we do? We doing all right?
Listen, they're undefeated. What can we say?
Well,
they're undefeated.
Yeah, I mean,
I do like Coco's. That's on the other side of town. That's my go-to.
You're allowed to love Coke. You're allowed to love them all. I tell everybody, go to all of my crab cake places. They're all beautiful, local families, local people. We lost Mr. Costas last week.
Right.
And the first person I saw paying tribute to Mr. Costas was the Pappas family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's Baltimore,
Yeah.
And people ask me all the time, like, competing on crab cakes, they all ship, they all deliver, they're all delicious, they're all local, they're all authentic. And they all have unique charm. This crab cake here has a mustardy sort of base to it. It's delicious. It's iconic. 1887. You didn't even know that, right?
I'd forgotten how long they went back.
They've been here a while.
Right. I said something like 80 or 90 years, but yes, it's like
125 to 38. 138 years.
Right.
Well, tomorrow, Miss Nancy Devine here, the lovely lady that is credited with inventing the jumbo lump crab cake, because she's the first one to use jumbo lump crab meat over 40 years ago. She's going to be honored by NBC as part of the 250th anniversary of America next year, and they're getting out in front of this big. It's not sesquicentennial. What the hell is sesquicentennial?
The 250th.
250.
Yeah,
I don't know what the sesquicentennial is. But 250. So they are an iconic American family as much as an iconic American tradition that has moved. And I think I'm proud of my association. But more than that, you said to me, you're a baseball head. One of the reasons I saw you on opening day, we get at it honest. And we're going to talk about the city and the city's renaissance. But being a baseball head, you always say how many out-of-town Oriole fans think of this as this is the place they've got to get a crab cake when they walk to a game.
Yeah, I mean, whether just on social media or wherever, or when I've stopped by at the old location, before a game, I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not going to Pickles for hours before a game anymore, or sitting out.
And they got beer here, and it's a little more quiet.
Right, or sitting out rain delays for hours at Pickles, but
a little more civil.
Yeah, right. But so many people come here to eat before the game. And the out of towners, I'm impressed that they know to come here. They know the spot.
Well, we're here. Ron Cassie is here. He is the executive editor. Is that right?
Senior editor.
God, is she the executive?
If you want to give me a promotion,
is she the executive editor?
She's the editor-in-chief.
Oh, okay,
she's
all right.
Chief.
I'm never going to confuse you with a chief. I mean, look at you. She's the chief.
Right.
We'll get Max at some point. She turned me down last month at Coco, so I got Ron. But you're a baseball guy, and you're doing this Renaissance of Baltimore cover piece. I would say hand in hand, I am inking a letter to Katie Griggs about why you have a press credential and I don't. But part of it is the importance of the baseball team, of Harbor Place. I talked to 5 people on opening day up on the club level about what's important, what's going on. They all said Harbor Place, Harbor Place, Harbor Place. Lexington Market was on that docket 10 years ago, right? The Hippodrome was on that docket 20 years ago, right? The beaten down Baltimore Civic Center that my dear friend Phil Jackman called the Municipal Ruins has been, rectified, fixed, re-erected, and big bands play there. We got a football team that wins. We got a baseball team that's going to win. There are things. I see skyscrapers over at Hopkins, right? I mean, there are things happening in this city boiling up other than just the murder rate, which I got this morning as well, right? You come today, and we've talked at length before the plague, during the plague, and now after the plague, and you've been a recurring figure here about raising this city, and things like Baltimore Magazine and Baltimore Positive and media and people and vested anchor institutions in this city trying to lift the city, man.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all our conversations we've had. I mean, we're not Pollyannish. We did a cover story about, the corruption in the city a couple of years ago after we had another mayor get charged with a crime, go to jail, and our state's attorney then, as well had been indicted. And the city council was under investigation. And there was kind of this long history. And at that time, the murder rate in the city was still climbing. And I think, people felt like we were at this impasse or something.
Well, Freddie Gray was a tough time.
Right, that's right. So
and we knew the morning after that it was going to be
right. And
we're a decade out this week, literally.
Right, and we had been trending as far as the homicide rate in a good direction previous to Freddie Gray.
This month, yes.
But in 2012, 13, 14, prior to Freddie Gray's death, the homicide rate had been going down in the city. We had been making progress, and then 10 years we went back up. And now, it's really one of the best stories in America. I mean, in terms of public safety, 20% reductions in homicide rate, 22 in 2023, 23% last year on top of that. And now this year, in the first 3 months, January to March, we have the lowest number of homicides, 39, since 1970. Now the population is down, but it's not just the homicide rate. I mean, that's enormous. I think that's up front and center on all of us who live in the city, on our minds. But also, the city has made a great effort, and with we have a Baltimore in Annapolis to get after the vacant housing problem, which is a real issue for investors in the city and people wanting to move into the city and retaining residents. You can't underestimate the damage, the
broken window,
psychological, but 17,000 vacant buildings. It's hard to get a groundswell, and we've knocked that down by 5,000, and there's plans and stuff to keep driving that number down. And that's the first progress in vacant houses, I think since I've been here, since the mid-'80s.
Well, we saw Detroit do this 25 years ago, right? This come in. I remember going to Detroit and just seeing long stretches of just dirt, and some of that has been parkland, some of that has been food to table, just all sorts of modern, against all odds with these creeps trying to run the federal government, right? We'll get into that and how that affects things, but good ideas. There are modern ideas to modernize not just Lexington Market or what the football stadiums are going to be, but what Harbor Place is going to be, but what cities need to be successful. And that's something being studied all over the world, quite frankly, that if you're the most recent to remodel, and we were in the 80s, that you really drink the benefit of that, right? When you get out in front of it, the way maybe Austin, Texas, or Nashville, some of the American cities have, but also success stories all around the world, like Medellin and cities that have risen from nothing.
I think one of the things psychologically that has hurt us kind of is the mindset that Baltimore is unique in the crises and challenges facing cities since really the 70s and 80s. All the cities in AFC North, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all lost a greater share of their population than Baltimore.
Pittsburgh!
All lost a greater share of their population.
Say that out loud. I like saying that. All right.
So all of our rival cities in the AFC North, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, all lost a greater share of their peak population than Baltimore did. And, of course, there's many other cities as well. So this is not just unique to us.
Are we coming back, Ron Cassie? We're coming back?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I think you alluded to it. There's there could be a looming recession, right? I mean, people would say there's a looming recession on board now. There's massive cuts to the NIH funding that doesn't just affect Hopkins, affects the University of Maryland and affects Morgan State, whose research and development arm has been booming. They had set a record in 2023 for the most patents awarded to an HBCU, like 13. And they get like $570 million a year in research grants as well each year. So the cuts to the Social Security, to all the federal offices in
well,
Baltimore.
the federal workers in the state. I saw we have more federal. 5.3% of the federal workforce is in the state of Maryland. That's number one in the country.
Right, and then we see all the cuts to like NIH funding, all the research grants, all the arts and culture programming. I think historically, you mentioned the Inner Harbor. Right after that was built, Reagan went through with massive cuts to the cities, massive cuts to pass his tax increases, and then we saw in the 90s we have a crack epidemic that reaches Baltimore and causes a lot of harm. And then we have the housing crash in 2007, 2008, COVID. So there always seems to be, once we get our feet underneath us,
2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I don't know which one we're going to go with.
Yeah.
I'd settle for 2 forward and 1 back.
Hopefully that's it. I mean, hopefully, the midterms come and
hopefully I'm not talking about the baseball team with 2 years forward and 1 year back.
No, but you mentioned CFG Bank Arena, which we had talked about. We did a story before that even opened up. That's great that you remember this. Unbelievable, right?
I mean, how many millions of people has it brought downtown in the last 2 years? Yeah,
and it's incredible. A-listers coming, I think, changes a little bit of the face of the city and the reputation when you have all these A-listers coming. And I think you mentioned the Ravens and Baltimore being playoff teams. We'll say playoff caliber playoff teams. There's $600 million in investments that are going to improve to renovate Camden Yards and M&T Bank Stadium, which is a massive influx of investment to essentially that neighborhood, right? The idea is to make the area around Camden Yards more of a right.
Live, work, play.
Live, work, place. Yeah.
Well, I had Megan McCorkle here maybe 2 months ago when she made the move from Enoch Pratt to Live Baltimore and really educated me on what I thought was just a nice shirt. You know what I mean? Like literally what the city is trying to do to recruit people like me that live in the county that would want to come. I love the city, right? I lived in the city for 19 years. I didn't leave the city because I was angry at the city. I left the city because my place sold and I just found a different situation. We didn't really want to leave the city. As I sit here and broadcast today, I was here having a crab cake over there on Monday. I ran into you 4 blocks from here Monday. 48 hours later, I'm here. I'll be back here this weekend. I mean, I'm in the city 2-3 days a week, kind of routinely, and I don't have an office here. I just have a life here. It's where I want to go and get things. It's where my cat goes for her vet. It's where my restaurants are. It's where when it's nice out and I want to go for a walk, I come down here and walk the Inner Harbor.
Right.
Like I still do that.
This was our February cover story, which we talked about on opening day, which was asking the question, is the city on the cusp of a renaissance? And in parentheses, the mayor thinks so. But one thing we'll say is, we just reelected our first mayor in 20 years, which is a
great point.
It's a big deal because, as part of that story, I talked to Shanae Sassals, the Baltimore Community Foundation, the biggest, I believe it's the biggest philanthropic arm in the city. They have over $300 million in assets. She made the point to me in our conversation, you can find this story online about the Baltimore Renaissance, that philanthropic organizations in the city want to align with what the mayor and the administration is doing, right? They're setting policies, they're setting agendas, they're spending money in places, and they want to build and collaborate, right, with that.
Well, these problems are all local. They're all within 6 miles of where we're standing right now, and they're obvious and they're evident from education to homeless.
If you go through, what do we go through? 4 or 5 mayors in a
they never get a grip on it.
Never get a grip on it, and then the philanthropic.
Well, this is the police chief and the fire, just everything down, let alone city council.
And so the actors, private and public, like philanthropic groups that want to work with the administration, they can't really. So they're having to change their agenda. So that was one part of the conversation that was interesting as part of this story. There's a lot happening at Penn Station. too. The investment there and Perkins Homes over in Fells Point, that's now going up, which is a great affordable housing neighborhood, or will be soon, right by Harbor East, Little Italy, Fells Point, City Hall. It's a wonderful.
Well, they built the whole city down in Port Covington. That at some point is. Well, I mean, I know nobody's there now, but it's not going to sit there and be ghost town forever. It's not. I don't know under what circumstance that could even be possible.
Well, to
say it's slow going is obvious, right?
Right.
Yes.
Before I forget, there's one other person we spoke to in the story. We talked to a number of people: Kara Ober in Arts and Culture, and Steffi Marunas with the mayor's office in public safety, works under the mayor's administration. Talked to David Wilson at Morgan State, Colin Tarbert with the Baltimore Development Corporation, and talked, about with Mark Anthony Thomas, who's head of the Greater Baltimore Committee, and he helped in the planning of Pittsburgh's revitalization in New York City and Los Angeles. Really, really super bright guy. And he talked about pulling together a cohesive message that actually Baltimore City and Baltimore County not need to stop competing against each other. And
it's a region.
It's a region. And you're selling the whole region.
Now, Johnny O and Stuart Pittman and Barry Glassman when he ran Harford County, and I'll get Bob Castiglione at some point. I mean, Carroll County doesn't have an executive, right? But Calvin Ball, when I've had him on, all of them have talked at length on this program about the importance of the city, that the city's image becomes there. Problems don't stop at the county line, like all of those things that those county executives, they understood that during the Hogan administration, right? Like literally.
But so Mark Anthony Thomas has worked on these plans in cities to attract investments. The wooing of investment, right? The wooing, bringing people in,
it's a
giving
lobby.
them tours.
Yeah.
It's a lobby. You're showing them the universities, the Federal Hill houses, right? You're showing them Faley's, right? You're taking them around to sell the assets of the city and the region. And it really has.
That's my next job. That's what I'm going to do. When I'm done with all this, Viviano was here doing all the nice charity thing. I'm going to be the guy that sells ball. How do I get that gig? Mark Anthony, call me. Call me.
Mark Anthony
I'm here for you.
He's a really bright guy. I mean,
he has an open invitation on the show. I've never met him. I've never had him on the show. I'm assuming he's really, really busy. But I've been trying to get him on for a long time.
Very enlightening.
Oh, I know. I've seen him speak online, but I've never met him.
He talks about the metrics of the city compared to other places. And it's not so much the city's reputation outside the city that holds us back. It's almost our own small thinking about ourselves that hold us back, right? And
Viv's down in Verona Park. Mark Viviano said people won't come to the city, that he lived in the city like I did for 20 years. I deal with that. People that are in the city, maybe, but we're all here. But trying to get someone from Bel Air down for a ball game or for a Morgan Wallen concert or for whatever would be the reason they would want to come downtown, they have to feel like it's a place they want to come. And and that has gone on for last 15 years. People have used that as a crutch that I don't want to go downtown.
I do, honestly, I think it is a crutch, an excuse, and I think you're not going to get everybody from Bel Air, and that's fine. On opening day, we saw 45,000 people here.
I saw tons of people from Bel Air down here on Monday.
You go to a concert at CFG Bank Arena, you see people from all over. I mean, you can see people from out of state who come to see those bands.
Sure.
And those artists, right?
And they come to Faley's for a crab cake, right?
And you mentioned...
They fill up hotel rooms. They do all those things we want them to do.
Right, and you mentioned the redevelopment of the Inner Harbor. I mean, Harbor Place, the Inner Harbor is still packed. I mean, it's an unbelievable amenity. The 7.5-mile walk along the water's edge from Canton to Locust Point. And if you want, you can extend it a little bit and go to Fort McHenry. And most people are going to do the whole thing.
Well, really unprecedented anywhere else in the city that you can do that kind of walk.
Incredible, beautiful walk. Plenty
Boston,
of places
maybe
to
you
eat
can do it. That's about it. New York City, you can get some waterfront. But if you just want to take a waterfront walk, this city's got that.
You can bring your dog with you. You can sit outside and eat. You can
I did it a million times. I used to jog through the harbor every day. Yeah.
The cherry blossoms right now in Fort McHenry are blossoming. I mean, you can do.
They have cherry blossom in front of Camden Yards. Did you know that? Right where I met you, 50 feet away. Right where the Hilton is and where that sub shop where the guy shoots elephants, that sub shop, I'm talking about on the corner.
Yeah.
They're unbelievable. Right in front of the Sports Legends Museum, right? Across from I have pictures you would think I'm in Japan. like literally.
So, right. I mean, it's beautiful. There's, Baltimore's a wonderful, obviously.
Well, you've made a life here. You've written books about it.
So I talked to Colin Tarver at the Baltimore Development Corporation. He's stepping down. And they coordinate the big kind of private projects.
I attended his event up at the center stage back in October. It was a great event.
Great event. And
great
people
event.
Should go. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but people should go to that every year.
It was a gathering of Baltimore's
progress. A lot
progress.
of panels, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of great panel discussions.
Yeah.
I met Trevor Price there and did a story about his
animation
studio.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's where I got that. So, but he talks about.
Do you just do stories on sports guys? Is that what you are?
If possible.
Okay, all right. Just I saw your Jim Palmer thing. I get all that.
So, but he talks about how the Renaissance side, he doesn't really believe in it, that places like Harbor East or Harbor Point, I mean, these developments Harbor East began under like Schmoke, essentially, right? And Schaefer even talking to Lou Grasmick about building some residential condos down by the water in Canton. I mean, these go, so it can seem the Penn Station redevelopment or the Camden Yards, stuff like the live, work, play, but these things are in the works for a long time. It just seems with a lot of things coming to fruition at once out of COVID, and I think that the mayor used a lot of the ARPA money. We got it's like $640 million, almost $700 million. The city got. I think he spent it well on some small projects in like Edmondson Village and Park Heights and other. I mean, Lexington Market was finished.
All the markets
with part of that
really
money
benefited, sure.
Right. So I think it was
Holland's Mark too.
And I think the mayor's, and I'm not shilling for the mayor, but I think his focus on the city's youth, like building rec centers after years of taking rec centers down, which are really important in Baltimore City, and having the pools open and having summer jobs programs, like really kind of nuts and bolts stuff about building a city from the ground up.
Well, we spent a long time talking about those pools being closed and what kids are going to do in the city and why kids are turning to crime and have idle time and the schools, right? And now we got D.C. trying to dismantle education in the whole country.
Right. So I think there's a lot, as for the progress we've made in the homicide rate and the vacant homes and a lot of good economic activities going on, our teams reaching the playoffs, there's always headwinds, there's always challenges. I mean, the opioid epidemic, the number of overdoses we're making progress on in the city finally, but, it's been a horror show, for a decade with fentanyl, a decade plus.
Well, the Renaissance at Baltimore Magazine was last month. You can check it out online. Ron Cassie is the associate editor. Is that right? Did I say it right?
Senior editor.
Senior editor. I don't know what you are. I didn't got to write this down.
Think of the senior golf tour. I'm old enough. I'd be too old
when
for that.
When I don't have producer putting up on the glass, senior editor Ron Cassie, I just know you as my pal from Baltimore Magazine. More of a sporty guy than just a civic leader and a writer and all that. He's written a book on his love of Baltimore. And you are a Jerseyan, right? Correct? From originally?
Proud born New Jersey native, yes.
Swamps of Jersey.
North Jersey.
All right, not far from Sayreville.
My dirty secret is I was born and still remain a National League Mets fan.
How's that going for you?
Listen, they made a great run to the playoffs last year, and they beat Philadelphia. That was a fun year. So I still go. My brothers and a lot of family still in Jersey, so last year the playoffs I went up and watch some games.
Dude, I can't hate
you.
You don't like the Yankees. If you don't like the Yankees,
we have a common enemy.
We can get along, right?
Right.
That's how this whole thing works. What do you make of the baseball thing here? And where the Orioles are in pitching at this point. I mean, I know you're a huge fan and had you on with various people. I was hoping to get you to sit in with Luke, but Luke had to go to the ballpark. We're down at Fadley's. New ownership. I thought I would have a press credential tonight. I really did. I'm going to be writing about that. My own personal disappointment is also sort of complicated by the fact of who's going to ask the tough questions and what their responsibility is in this renaissance, right? Like, to me, you've already mentioned that they're getting $600 million. I mention that all the time. I was here when the first stadium got built, right? So first time around, ownership was different. I saw 30 years of the Angelos thing and how it really – my Free the Birds thing wasn't like, I hate Peter Angelos. My Free the Birds thing was like, dude, if you're going to F this up and screw the city up, sell the team. Same thing that the fans are saying in Tampa, down there chanting, sell the team if you're not in it. So I spent 20 years waiting for Mr. Rubenstein to come and buy $15 million remnant 41-year-old pitchers. Because, you know what I mean? And buy $5.5 million worth of Kyle Gibson because Grayson Rodriguez's arm's going to fall off. And invest in the team, invest in the city, walk the walk, talk the talk. He does have a bobblehead later this month, Ron.
Yeah, well, I think there's a question may have been about pitching.
Yes.
Right. Listen, it's just
pitching's about how much money he's going to spend on it. It really it kind of comes to that,
right.
you know.
The payroll has gone up dramatically since he took over.
Almost
but
double.
Part of it is the players just maturing the young team. But I mean, everybody's disappointed. Of course, they didn't pick up a frontline star to go with Eflin, a really proven guy. I mean, I think Dean Kramer will have a solid year and chew up innings. I think the book's out on Gibson and Shigano, who looked good. He settled down a little bit before his hand cramped up, but
Morton's
35
as old as you
years
and me.
old. Morton is almost as old as you and me.
Luke can say that because Luke's like 43.
Who was the guy?
42.
Jamie
Moyer. Jamie Moyer.
That's right.
So I met Jamie Moyer at spring training in 1993 in what was then Al Lang Stadium, and they practiced at Huggins Stengel Park. Stengel like Casey. And this is in St. Petersburg. 1993, no prayer that they're going to get a baseball team for that blimp that they built for the White Sox and the Giants down there. And Jamie Moyer, built like me and you, just built like a regular guy. He was married to Digger Phelps' daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, so Digger Phelps is hanging around Oriole camp. And I'm wondering, why? And Digger Phelps is on ESPN every night at that point, former Digger Phelps fell in love with me sitting in the stands watching Fungos. And I got to know Digger Phelps because his son-in-law, he said, my son-in-law is trying to make the team. And I'm like, trying to make the team. It's 1993. Jamie Moyer was washed up at that point, right? He had been a starter, a reliever. He'd failed. He'd been to minors. I think he had pitched in Mexico, Venezuela, a bunch of places. Cubs. I believe it was Cardinals before that. White Sox even. He showed up. It was like his career was on complete fumes. Nowhere near where Dean Kramer or any of these guys are. And he pitched like another 15 years.
I don't think
he had the most unbelievable career.
I don't think he would have intimidated an American Legion hitter. Do you know what I mean?
And a great guy, Jamie Moore, just a great guy.
Yeah.
And his wife had my Get Nasty shirt.
Wow.
And he came up to me one time because it said Get Nasty on it. And his wife said to me, "I wear your shirt to bed every night. It pisses my husband off." That's. So this is 32 years ago, and Jamie Moyer's a bit of a legend, right?
Bit of a legend.
We're all trying to find a little Jamie Moyer to me. You know what I mean? I thought Albert Suarez might be that guy.
He was last year.
Well, he's Venezuelan. I love him.
He was
for
last
that.
year, yeah.
But as we sit here, he's I keep saying DL, IL, whatever it is.
Right. Well, he's like 35
He's hurt.
years old, right? I mean,
yeah,
I starts to break down a little bit.
You said the first thing, man, and you're not even an Orioles fan, but you're an Orioles sympathizer, right?
I'm a huge Orioles fan.
But you're a Mets fan, really.
No. I've been
Mets
here
played
since
the Orioles in the World
1986.
Series. Who are you rooting for?
I've been here since 1986.
Who are you rooting for?
I will.
You're Orioles
I
your
will
second
be rooting
team.
for Baltimore
No,
because
you
I'm
won't.
here. Because I'm here. I will
No,
totally
right.
be rooting for Baltimore because I'm here.
You're not going to root against the Mets in Game 7. You're not. So, because you're a Mets guy.
I want to see the city happy, Joyce. I want to
city
go
will
to the
be happy
parade.
if we go to the World
I'm not going to
Series.
be going to the parade in Manhattan. I'm going to be going to the parade here.
You would go to a
guarantee you.
Mets parade
And
if they win the World Series.
I never met Tom Seaver and Cleon Jones, but I have met Boog Powell and Jim Palmer and Brooks Robinson, all those guys. So
I did meet Tom Seaver once. He was nice
I
to
will
me.
totally be on board with the Orioles all the way. I can root for a team in the National League and hope they meet. That would be great.
My dad was still
But
pissed
this
at
is what I
Ron
wanted to-
Swoboda, after all
I'll
that.
talk to Ron Swoboda. I mean, he tells a great story because he grew up a Brooks Robinson
I
fan. That was
know.
his favorite player ever.
I know.
And he robs Brooks Robinson, of a double that.
And he still has no
RBI double.
conscience about it 50 years later, I bet. Not at all.
Great guy, Ron Swoboda.
Oh, man, I
Great
know.
guy.
But,
great athlete, really.
my dad
too.
was mad at him. But I would say for the Orioles, you said you began the whole thing by saying, well, of course I was disappointed they didn't get a number one starter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, if your first statement about the new ownership and everything and their first off season is, of course I was disappointed about the pitching and then pitchers are getting hurt. Dude, I've been doing this a long time. Unless somebody is Jamie Moyer, right? Unless Cade Povich steps up and becomes Jeff Ballard for a year, or becomes that guy, it's really hard to win without pitching. That being said, Yankees have lost top two start. The other injuries in other places don't make me feel as bad about it. But it's kind of like if you don't have a starting quarterback, you can't win. And I feel that way about their pitching. Now, first time in my lifetime, that I've been able to sit here before a game and say they have prospects and money and a desire to win. The other old man, he didn't want to win.
This is
he
what
didn't care about winning.
This is what I wanted to ask you. I think the feeling is, and I don't know if you're hearing or feeling the same thing, is Elias is going to go get somebody. If we're in contention or in the wild card spot,
And
or
they better
leading,
be. And they better be.
As a trade deadline approach, they'll make moves to add starting pitching.
Well, the guy
like they
down
got
in
Eflin
Florida's
last
there.
year.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and they got Corbin Burns last year. When, the minute that Bradish looked like he wasn't going to be able to pitch and Means broke down.
Right.
The Tommy John thing, I talked at length with Dave Sheinin about that a couple weeks ago and Luke, just how fragile pitching is and then the money part of it. And the thing that if I were to talk to Katie Griggs or David Rubenstein, and I don't think he knows enough, I think she knows a lot, where's it all coming from? Where's their money revenue stream and stream? I was in Toronto Friday night. Nobody in the city can watch the game because it's on Apple TV. Nobody here can watch a game because it's on. So they need to rethink how they're presenting things in their streaming package, in addition to where the money's coming from. Because this city's not a Fortune 500. Like, I saw all the people there Monday, and I see that there'll be a whole lot less there tonight. And I keep thinking to myself, where is the corporate money? And where are the fans who have big pockets that are going to be $10,000, $20,000 a year investors in the Orioles?
So I don't know I try to read all the beat reporting, but I haven't seen much conversation about this. That as a fan, I've got to look every day to find out where I'm going to watch the game. Am I going to be able to stream it on my MLB TV app? Do I have to go to Apple TV? Does Masson have it? That's something you have to do now, for every.
They're
game.
one of 3 teams that doesn't have an out-of-market streaming option, in-market streaming option, I should say. One of my dearest friends was a young boy who loved baseball. We celebrated his family's lives on Sunday. He's 40 now. He lives down in North Carolina. And this kid, encyclopedia baseball, right? He's 40 years old now. I said, you watching the Orioles? They don't give me the games, and I can't. I'm out of market, in market, and North Carolina's tough. And I'm like, dude, you're a 40-year-old guy with 2 kids. You love baseball, and they're not even giving you a way to love the team.
North Carolina used to be a bit of Orioles fan base.
It was a massive.
Right?
When I would walk in a bar in Nags Head in the 90s, the Oriole game was on because they got home
they
team
didn't have
sports.
baseball there.
They were an
Atlanta
Oriole
was
market.
like the closest team because the Senators weren't even there for a long time.
Richmond was Oriole
There's a
territory.
long North
Absolutely.
Carolina,
So was
Baltimore.
Norfolk. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're. I don't know all the revenue streams. I know, but what you mentioned is right. They are going to eventually. Right, reconfigure left field, and are going to put some more luxury boxes in somewhere. Is that part of the plan?
I have no idea what they're doing. I think they're going to build a little club down there in left field, like the old bullpen. They had one of those in Toronto. It was sponsored by a liquor company.
Right.
It's called the 354 Club. However far away from home plate it is, is what they named it in Toronto. Yeah, they're going to make it a bar. They're going to make it a bar.
They've gotten better. The attendance has taken average attendance has taken big jumps the last couple of years, right?
Yes, but the revenue part of who's buying a $16 beer? And I keep going back to this, Ron. This is my big picture with baseball. Is they need to take a soon-to-be 60-year-old guy like me and say, dude, you're an Oriole fan. Here's what we got for you. Season is $259 for all the games on the thing. But if you do the $650 or $1,200 season ticket, we'll give you the games on TV for free. Because we're already getting enough money from you. We know we're going to sucker you into the ballpark. We're going to get you onto the app. We're going to give you the $5 sodas and the load up your hot dogs. And we're going to give you tickets in it. All those niceties that they have, it's going to be a club. It's going to be a country club. It's going to be a pay. You're going to be a member, right? And part of the membership is going to include I get the games anywhere I want them, anytime I want them, because that's like Luke talks about paying for the WWE. He's a wrestling fan. He subscribes every month. He gets all the content, right? That's going to be what they're going to have to do, and they're going to have to tie it to tickets and come into the games. And if you come to enough games, they're going to give you the games at home for free because you're giving them a lot of money.
Right. And I mean,
if you're giving them $2 or $3 grand a year for a season ticket, what's them throwing the games in on the television thing if you're only giving them $200 it's $20 a month. Right? So it's $120 a year. Here's my problem. How does all that add up to $50 million for Gunnar Henderson? Like, where their old model was your point. 7 states, $3 a head for every – when you flew over Virginia, everybody with cable television in that state was giving Peter Angelos money.
Clearly with the –
that's over.
Right, they more expensive prices, all the streaming services, and they own, right, the Orioles own Masson, right?
Yeah.
So they have enough revenue. Even under Angelos, I mean, the salaries were ridiculously low, but they were
the
one of
Masson
the most
revenue's gone
profitable
now.
baseball teams, in the league. And the values of the franchises keep going up. So if you're even just treading water, the value of your investment keeps going up. It is different than when we moved here, 86. I'm living with a friend in Waverly. And
Boo and Fred Lynn.
And I can even before Freddie Lynn, I could walk over over to the ballpark, and sometimes we watch the game on TV, drinking Natty Bow, and it'd be a close game, second or third inning, and you just walk over the ballpark and maybe get a ticket from a dad and son who are leaving early, or buy a ticket, just sit out in the bleachers and catch 6 or 7 innings of baseball, and that's what I grew up with. Listen, I'm still that kind of fan. I mean, I bring a bottle of water and some peanuts in with me, I
filled my water bottle on the club level a dozen times.
Partly the reason I saw you opening day is I want to go to opening day. I don't want to spend the $100 on a ticket. I'll apply for a press pass. I'll write a story, for the whole thing. We do a feature story in the magazine, a couple stories. We do stories on the
Well, what is your story of opening day in a general sense? It was a beautiful day, man. I went home. My wife said, how'd you do? Because my wife knows my mixed feelings when they're letting you have a press pass and not me. I own a radio. I dedicate my life to it. You know what I mean? So it pisses me off dramatically. But that being said, I went to the game Monday. I had the greatest day. I saw you and 1,000 other friends. Yeah. You're here now because I went to opening day and I ran into you, right? So the benefits of being there for me and loving it and seeing so many happy people on opening day. Opening day was a beautiful thing this year. Really,
yeah,
really was. It was great. And I think there is a renewed sense. I was so stupid, I thought they were going to give me a press pass. I thought new ownership really represented this thing that's new. And I think a lot of fans are certainly buying into that. And that's good. That's good. That being said, they still didn't buy a number one
starter. So you're throwing me under the bus about our press pass, but we do an opening day feature in the print magazine.
I'm not throwing you under the bus. You deserve a press pass. You cover the team.
And we do. And we go through all the
I deserve one, too. That's all I'm saying. I don't need to be in line in front of you. I just should be next to you.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Listen,
I do this professionally. That's all. I do. I do this professionally.
I come from an Irish and Italian background, and I come from ancestors who could hold the grudge, including my mom, for a long time. And this, to me, is a really long, long grudge that they're holding against you. I mean,
I have no grudge. I paid to get in on Monday.
Right. And the day to have that after all these years.
I flew to Toronto to get in last. I went to another country last week to follow their baseball team.
We talked about this too a little bit. Is these teams, we're talking about Major League Baseball and professional teams, they don't need the print media in the way that they so much did before. They can get...
There's a lot of things in life you don't need that you're still kind to.
Exactly. I agree. I mean,
I didn't need the guy walking up to me a little while ago asking me for $1 if I had one, but I was kind to him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
think this does, play out a little differently. I'll bring up another point. It's tangential maybe, but I don't. They obviously can put the videos of Brandon Hyde's, interviews after the game on their own website, the Orioles, and do all that stuff, and they can get their word out, and they have their own social media feeds and all that stuff.
Well, they're doing reality TV now.
But what I do think, actually, and like with Kevin Willard at the University of Maryland, right? Kevin Willard made over $4 million a year paid by the state taxpayers, right?
Highest paid employee in the state.
Second to Lockery, the football coach. Basketball's just, they're right there, yeah. And this isn't unusual, but the Orioles are getting, we built that stadium, taxpayers. The Orioles are getting a $300 million investment from the taxpayers to renovate for $1 billion owner and ball players who are going to make more money than almost anybody else in the state.
And not leave it here. They go home with it. Other than Trevor Price and a few, B.J. Suroff, a few people stay here.
I don't begrudge any of that, but I think they do, in kind, like you said, deserve more transparency to the people who are paying those salaries. Literally taxpayers. It's not just a private company.
Yeah,
right?
I want to know when David Rubenstein's going to have a real press conference. Not
throwing
out hats and hanging out with Cal Ripken's kid on a podcast.
That's what I'm talking about. That's because you're actually like a city official or a state official when you're taking that much taxpayer money and amenities that the city and state pays for. It's not just like you're a private person, private enterprise where you don't have that same obligation. That I think Willard did, to be honest, in his press conferences with the people. You're being paid $4 million by the taxpayers of Maryland. You have some obligation to be transparent and forthright with people, right? I think. as a journalist.
Agreed. Yes.
As a journalist. And I think the Orioles are the same thing.
Well, integrity's not for sale. And not in my department. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're either telling the truth or you're lying. And that's my job as a journalist to call that, as a citizen to call that out.
And our feature in print was on David Rubenstein and Corey McLaughlin. Our freelancers did a great job of that story, and Rubenstein was very generous and accessible. And the Orioles, almost always are, and their players are,
all the things they're not to me, because I have questions too. Like, I'm vested. Like, the question should be answered when you're a billionaire and you own the team.
Right,
and that goes for Angelos, Bisciotti, Modell,
we're not talking
Poland. We're talking about a half an hour to come here and do what you're doing right now and talk about your team, your intentions, and then I hold you accountable to whatever that is. Like, literally.
Yeah, you're going to spend the $300 million maybe from the city.
Well, I mean, they're going to move Luke out of the press box. Did you enjoy the press box? They won't be there 2 years from now. It will not be there.
It's going up. Right?
No, it's going out.
Oh, it's going
it'll be out in left field before it's all over with. Yeah. You think it's going up?
Yeah.
You should hope it goes up.
I saw Jim Henneman there.
How's Jimmy?
He's
my former colleague.
He made it to spring training. He's 90.
He's 90 now.
Or in his 90s.
Well, he has to be.
Yeah. It's great to see him. He's
a legend, man.
Legend. No, and nobody knows more, loves the game more.
I work with Jim. I was colleagues with Jim for 7 years. Yeah,
and it was a really nice gesture from the Orioles to name the press box after him. I thought of that when I went in and saw Jim.
I didn't know that. That's appropriate.
Yeah. They've got a plaque and they named it after him, and they had a little ceremony with Jim last year, the year before.
Yeah, I think I knew that. Yeah. Okay, I now remember that.
Yeah.
The other one's named after Kevin Byrne. So we spent $300 million in that stadium, throwing me out of the press box, telling me there's no more space, and they put the Kevin Byrne press box, I call it the Little House, up in the corner. So I always say to Kevin Byrne, how's it feel that I got banned from your press box? Nice. This is my walk in life. Ron Cassie is here. I'm not going to run from it. He is the not the associate editor, not the publisher. He's certainly not the chief. You are the senior editor.
Right.
You don't look old enough to be senior.
Remember Senior PGA Tour. Think of that.
It makes you sound like you're at the pasture. Makes you sound like you got some executive part-time job. He's covering all things that are beautiful about Baltimore and Baltimore Magazine. What's great about the magazine right now? What do you got going on?
Well, Best Restaurants is out, and that's, I think, maybe – I don't know if that or Best of Baltimore in August is our most popular issues, but Best Restaurants is on the newsstands now, which is always an amazing – issue, and Jane Marion, our food editor, does an amazing job curating that whole thing, and that's just something you keep around for the entire year. And
I need to know some good places to eat. Do you have a new place you've been?
Well,
that you
I don't know
promote?
if you've been to Little Donna's on Bank Street.
I know about it. Do tell. I haven't been, but sell me on it, and I'll sell you on a place.
So
go ahead.
Little Donna's is like a block and a half from my house. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go together then.
Yeah, it was New York Times, like one of the best new restaurants
I know
in the
about
country
the
last
pizza
year.
that comes from Phoenix, because I've had that pizza out in Phoenix. It's delicious. And there was a chef there. I know about the pierogies because I'm married to a Polish girl, and I know they do pierogies there in a big way. And I was going to go down and get a pizza and pierogies a couple weeks ago.
And I don't pretend to be the biggest foodie in the world.
Is there always a line out the door?
No. It's very accessible. Like, I just walk down there.
I want to
go.
Early, I really want to go.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm going to Little Donna's with you, okay?
Yeah.
On behalf of my first girlfriend, Donna Gerard.
Classic.
Love you, Donna.
Eating in a row house in Baltimore like that is just, come on.
Okay, so here's what I did. And I knew about this. Matt Gallagher and I had a little talk about whether we were going to do this or not. My wife and I, a month ago, went to Toki. You know Toki Underground? T-O-K-I. Toki. You been there yet?
No.
It's Green Mountain 28th.
Yeah, I know where it is.
About
it's on my list.
Just south of Pete's Grill. Man, I love Japan. I love everything about Japan. And I love ramen. And I love just all of it. We had a really, really great meal at Toki Underground.
Yeah.
So shout out, arigato, to our friends at Toki Underground.
Hey, talk about Renaissance. We have an amazing city in terms of the diverse food cuisines, cultures happening, expanding in the city, right?
You're going to make me promote my own thing. You're going to do this, right? My 27th anniversary is August 3rd. Now, I've done 30 crab cakes. I've done all that, right? This year, I'm doing my 27 favorite things to eat in Baltimore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm going to do 27 days in August. of 27 favorite things to eat
Yeah.
in Baltimore. And one of them's going to be a snowball. You know that, right? One of them's going to be an egg custard snowball.
Do you have a snowball
I got it.
favorite?
I can't tell you until August. Everybody knows my favorite place is ICD. Everybody knows about ICD around town.
Okay.
So, but I've got dishes, and I have, because my heart's broken about things I can't eat anymore, like Burke's onion rings, gone.
Oh.
The Angelina's crab cake, gone. You know?
Heartbreaking to the Royal Farms on top of where
How
Burke's
about,
used to be, isn't it?
Right, it is a little weird.
It's
How
heartbreaking.
about Nacho Mamas and their salsa? I mean, you know, so there are some things you can't get anymore, but I'm with you and your magazine and featuring great local places doing great things that you can only get here. You can only get a lot of things here in Maryland. We have indigenous things here, right here at Fadley's. You only get a Fadley's crab cake right here.
Well, listen, the Crab 5, right? I mean,
There you go.
we have some iconic cuisine from the Chesapeake Bay, but now we also have, I think, a little, richer, new, different ethnic groups, like Latino groups moving in, and
Like me.
Asian, right? And we have some great stuff happening in terms of the city's
They haven't
culture.
got rid of all the
Which I
Venezuelans
think is
yet.
why you love living in the city, right? Is you can do new things and
One of
try
my
new
favorite
food
things to
and-
do is to go up right across from Penn Station to go to Alma. You know Alma? Cafe
Yeah,
Alma?
yeah, of
She's
course.
Venezuelan,
Venezuelan,
right?
yeah,
so
yeah.
she has Venezuelan beer. There's only one other place in America you can get Venezuelan beer, South Florida. Like, you can get it in Orlando. My brother lives in Kissimmee. They have it in Florida. But Polar es un tipo cerveza.
So this is like
See.
Di Pasquale's for me. You get the little things from Italy you
Get
can't get
little
anywhere else.
yes!
Or Trinacria you can do too.
See,
Little
you
imported-
know,
yeah.
you know. I'm going to meet him at Little Donna's. He is the big editor, he's the senior editor at Baltimore Magazine. He's Ron Cassie. He is a sportsman, a Mets fan, an Orioles sympathizer, and a chronicler of what makes our city great. One of the things that makes our city great is the Maryland Zoo. And they're putting the lights on out there for me and my wife. In the old section, I learned about this. My wife and I went out. We tried to pet the leopard. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. The leopard didn't want, but the leopard was eating some things. The zoo is great. There's all talk about construction, and there's a big construction project going on.
Yeah, that was one of the things we
Big
highlighted
dig.
in the Baltimore Renaissance story. Is there's new pool at Druid Hill Park, and the whole lake is getting a big, massive overhaul and should be opening up soon. And that's an enormous, beautiful amenity. Druid Hill. I mean, you can get lost in there. It's just
My wife
wonderful.
and I pulled out of the zoo 2 weeks ago. We were over there with Kirby, Shannon, Bill Cole from Cole Roofing had a big soiree at the Mansion House there, which I love. A lot of history. We had armadillos. We had penguins. I met. I'm trying to think of my penguin's name. I'll look it back up. Had a little penguin, little armadillo, and we're leaving, and there's deer everywhere. And my wife is like, "There are deer in Druid Hill Park." I'm like, "Sure, there are deer in Druid Hill Park,
Yeah,
right?"
there's like too many.
There's
probably.
a lot of. My guy from the zoo's like,
They're
"Yeah,
like
a lot of
they're
deer."
in Herring Run
But
Park,
she had
too.
no
Yeah.
idea there were
They're in
deer in the
Herring
city
Run.
like that,
You know
right?
where Herring Run is by
Yeah.
Lycon Valley? They're over there too. Yeah, I hate to imagine this, but they may have to like call the
We
herd
have fox in
eventually.
the city too. You know, we have fox running wild. We do. There's fox in the city.
Listen, the Inner Harbor. They've built some new wetlands around and by the aquarium,
Right.
and you have turtles on their back.
Snakes.
Big turtles.
Yeah.
Snakes, eels. I mean, it's
And crabs that we
Yeah.
put in the steamer right back here at Fadley's, and we eat them up. Delicious crab cakes. Ron Cassie, make sure you're subscribing to Baltimore Magazine, supporting the city. My man Mike Teitelbaum, Steve Jeppy. I've seen Jeppy online and offline.
He was at opening day.
I haven't been to a game with Steve in a while. Everybody knows of my affinity, my deep love of Steve Jeppy, going back to when he had Jeppy's Comic World right next to Anna's Fried Dough and the Swenson's Ice Cream down in the Light Street Pavilion. Ron, I love you. You already had a crab cake, so I've already, I'm surprised you stayed after I gave you the crab cake. You're an honorable man. A lot of people just would have eaten and gone.
I appreciate
but
the crab cake.
enjoy Baltimore Magazine. I always enjoy my chats with Ron Cassie. It was serendipity running into him at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Opening day, I run into everybody on opening day. I told my wife when I went home, she's like, "Did you have fun?" I'm like, all I did was see people I love and people who love me.
Yeah,
That's opening
normally
day.
you see
That's
like half
beautiful.
the city council there too.
I saw half the city council there, too. I did. I saw former city council. Speaking of Bill Cole, the other Bill Cole. I spent some time with him. I saw Zeke Cohen at length. He was trying to join me here today, but we're going to get Zeke Cohen on city council president as well. So we got politics, sports, good news on the city, the renaissance of the city. You can read about it as told by the mayor and Baltimore Magazine. You can do that at BMAG. We're down here at Fadley's. We're doing it all on behalf of our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I have the scratch-offs in the Maryland Lottery, the lucky Magic 8 ball, a couple of winners already here at Fadley's today. We're going to be doing this next Friday at Costas Inn, where we will be paying tribute to the late, great Costas Triantafylus. I know I'm mispronouncing that, but I'm trying to not turn it all into Scata, and he would appreciate that. We're at Fadley's. We're going to talk about the Maryland Zoo and the bright lights you will see after dark down in Drudel Park. You don't even say it right. Drudel Park.
That's what gives me away, is not being a native Baltimorean. I don't have the accent still.
If you go to that place up in
I can
Harford
say Hollandtown.
And you just did. That's good. There ain't no Hollandtown. It's Upper Canton, hun.
And I can say Lumber Street.
I can say Bel Air or Blair Road.
Blair Road.
We're down here on Utah and Paca. We're at Lexington Market. Keeping it real. We're Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.